Chapter 1. The Wrong Ex. The apartment was small, but tonight it felt cavernous. Emma Carter sat cross-legged on her worn-out sofa, drowning in an oversized hoodie and flannel pajama bottoms. The TV flickered silently with an old rom-com while a heartbreak playlist crooned from her phone speakers. Too soft to sing along, too loud to ignore. A bottle of cheap wine sweated on the coffee table. She clutched it like a lifeline. Her eyes were puffy from crying, mascara smudged into soft gray shadows. In front of her, her phone screen glowed, open to a chat with Jason. She jabbed at the keys with clumsy fingers. "He doesn't even like dogs," she muttered to the empty room. "Who doesn't like dogs? That's a red flag, right, Luna?" She glanced at her houseplant perched on the windowsill. A spindly pothose she'd named Luna because the moon never left her either. Luna didn't respond, of course. Plants were great at keeping secrets. Her thumbs moved again. "You know what, Jason? I don't need you. Send. I deserve better. Send. But also, do you still think about me? Send. Send. Send." Her dignity was gone. Her confidence, tipsy. The bottle of wine gave her courage she would regret. She slumped back against the cushions. "Okay, Emma Carter, 5 stages of grief. Go." Denial. He probably just fell asleep. Yeah, that's it. Who sleeps at 10 p.m.? Responsible people. But I hate responsible people. She took a long drink straight from the bottle. Anger. "You know what, Jason?" She raised the phone like it was his face. "I hope your Wi-Fi breaks forever." She threw the phone at the couch arm. It bounced harmlessly and landed beside a cushion. Bargaining. She snatched it up again. "If you text me back right now, I swear I'll stop stalking your Instagram. For a week. Send." Depression. She dropped the phone onto her lap and stroked Luna's leaf absently. "Luna, I'm gonna die alone and you'll inherit the apartment." Acceptance. She set the wine down, breathing in. "Whatever. I'm over it. I'm strong. I'm independent. Wait. Why isn't he replying?" Her fingers trembled as she opened the call log. She redialed Jason's number. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. By the 4th call, her head was heavy. She lay back on the couch, voice breaking. "You're the only man who never disappoints me," she whispered to no one in particular, and drifted off. Morning. Sunlight stabbed through the blinds. Her head throbbed. Her mouth tasted like old wine and regret. Her phone buzzed against the coffee table. She squinted at the screen. Text from Daniel Blake, CEO. "Let's talk." Emma's soul left her body. She sat up so fast her blanket slid to the floor. "What?" she croaked, scrolling through the messages. Last night's text stared back at her, ugly and undeniable. "Jason, please, I miss you. Can we talk? You're still the best mistake I ever made. You have pretty eyes, you know that? Good night." Bossman loudly crying face red heart. She made a sound somewhere between a scream and a gasp and buried her face into a pillow. No, no, no. She opened her call history. Outgoing call. Daniel Blake, work. 2:17 a.m., 3 minutes. 3 whole minutes. She stared at the screen, horror spreading like cold water. She didn't remember what she'd said, but judging from her texts, it probably involved tears. Maybe she'd told him he was the only man who never disappointed her. Maybe she'd called him bossman out loud. She slid down to the floor, pressing her forehead against the cool wood. "I'm never drinking wine again," she mumbled into the rug. "Only vodka. No memories there." Her phone buzzed again. The screen stayed blank. But she knew Daniel Blake would be in his office soon, and she'd have to see him. Chapter 2. Let's pretend that didn't happen. Emma Carter walked into the office like a fugitive fleeing the scene of her own emotional crime. Her sunglasses were far too big for an indoor setting, but they hid the dark circles under her eyes, and maybe, if she was lucky, the humiliation radiating from her soul. In her right hand, she clutched a large iced coffee like it was holy water. Her hangover cure, her emotional support beverage, her only ally. The receptionist at the front desk smiled politely. "Good morning, Miss Carter." Emma smiled back, or at least attempted to. It looked more like a grimace. She nodded, walked past, and muttered under her breath, "Normal. Be normal. You're fine. Totally fine." She was not fine. The universe, sensing her attempt at calm, decided to mock her. The assistant from HR peeked out of her cubicle, cheerful and unsuspecting. "Morning, Emma. The CEO asked for you." Emma froze. "He what?" "The CEO," he said. "Send Emma to my office. Now." "Oh, haha. He did?" she asked, voice an octave too high. The assistant nodded. "Yep. Did he say why?" "Nope. Just now." Emma forced a laugh that sounded like impending doom. "Right now, of course. Love that word." Her legs carried her down the hall like she was walking to her own execution. The click of her heels echoed with every heartbeat. When she reached Daniel Blake's office, she paused to take a deep breath, straightened her blouse, and whispered to herself, "If I die, delete my browser history." She knocked once. "Come in," came his voice, low, composed, the kind of voice that made even a simple word sound like a statement of authority. Emma stepped inside. Daniel sat behind his desk, immaculate as always. Crisp white shirt, charcoal suit, every line of him perfectly controlled. He looked up from his laptop, unreadable. "Have a seat, Miss Carter." She obeyed, clutching her tote bag like it might protect her from whatever storm was coming. The silence stretched. She could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner, the faint clack of a distant keyboard. Then Daniel leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, and said evenly, "I'm going to pretend last night didn't happen." Emma blinked, unsure if she'd heard correctly. Then she exhaled, shoulders sagging in relief. "Oh my God, thank you," she said, hands pressed together as if praying. "I was possessed. Mercury retrograde. Or maybe Jinn retrograde." He raised an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth almost twitching. "Ms. Carter, I swear, I don't even remember calling you," she babbled. "I think I was trying to order pizza and the universe just, redirected me to you somehow. It's fine. We can pretend it was a dream. A weird, blurry, Emma." He said her name quietly, and it stopped her mid-ramble. He didn't say her name often. Hearing it now felt intimate. "I said I'd pretend it didn't happen," he repeated. "Let's leave it there." "Right? Totally. Leaving it there. Poof. Gone. Never existed." He gave a short, amused breath through his nose, the closest thing she'd ever seen to a laugh from him. Then, as though the conversation hadn't been mortifying enough, he added, "I need you to accompany me on an out-of-town trip this weekend." Emma blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "The CSR team is short-staffed. We're donating equipment to a partner school. You'll help coordinate. You're efficient, reliable." He paused. "And you don't snore." She stared at him. "Did you just make a joke?" His lips curved slightly. "Was it funny?" "It was terrifying," she said honestly. "Then it worked." Her mouth opened, but words failed her. Was her boss flirting? No, he couldn't be. Bosses didn't flirt. Especially not ones who sent "let's talk" texts after drunk calls. "So," Daniel continued, returning his gaze to the laptop, "pack lightly. We leave Friday afternoon." "Friday. Got it. Love Fridays. My favorite F word." He looked up again. "Ms. Carter." She cleared her throat. "Friendly. I meant friendly. Fridays are friendly." He blinked slowly, the faintest ghost of amusement flickering behind his eyes. "Dismissed." She nodded too quickly. "Right. Dismissed. Cool. Goodbye." She turned so fast that her bag strap caught on the door handle, yanking her back. "Sorry. Continuing my professionalism now." Daniel's quiet chuckle followed her out the door. By lunchtime, Emma had buried herself in a corner of the company cafeteria, face down on the table. Her best friend and coworker, Mia, slid into the seat across from her. "Okay," Mia said, sipping her iced latte. "Explain why you look like a war survivor." Emma groaned. "He said he's going to pretend it didn't happen. The call, the texts, the call, all of it." Mia's eyes widened. "He knows. Of course he knows. I literally left him a 3-minute voicemail at 2 in the morning. My career is a ghost ship." Mia snorted, trying to hide her laugh behind her straw. "So, what did he say after that?" "He wants me to go with him this weekend. For some corporate thing." Mia leaned in, eyes gleaming. "Oh, my God. He invited you?" "It's not like that. It's work." "Still not normal," Mia said. "Normal bosses don't bring their drunk texters to out-of-town trips." Emma covered her face. "Neither is calling your boss at 2 a.m. crying about your ex. But here we are." Mia chuckled, twirling her straw. "All right, serious question. Is he mad?" Emma thought of the look in Daniel's eyes when he said her name, the faint smile that didn't belong in their usual office tension. "No," she said quietly. "I think he's amused." Mia's lips curved into a knowing grin. "Oh, honey, that's not amusement. That's interest." Emma pointed a warning finger. "Don't you start with that." "Too late," Mia said cheerfully. "I'm starting." That evening, back in her apartment, Emma packed a small overnight bag for the weekend trip. Each folded shirt felt like preparation for emotional disaster. She replayed the morning again. His calm voice, that rare spark of humor, the way he looked at her like she was something he hadn't expected. She sighed, flopping onto her bed. "No, Emma, don't even go there. He's your boss. You're terrifyingly handsome, slightly mysterious, apparently funny boss." She groaned into her pillow. "I'm doomed." But under all that panic, a tiny voice whispered, "Maybe not doomed. Maybe just in trouble." And somehow that felt worse. Chapter 3. Return to the past. The drive to the small town took 3 hours, but it felt strangely peaceful. The city's noise faded behind them, replaced by rolling green fields, clusters of small houses, and the occasional tricycle whizzing by. Emma leaned against the car window, watching the scenery blur by, the morning sun turning everything golden. Blake Innovations had built its reputation on creating affordable learning tools, digital kits that turned classrooms into interactive spaces. But this trip wasn't about profit or pitch decks. It was about giving back. When the car rolled through the gates of their old high school, Emma stared at the sign, blinking. She hadn't been back in years. The same weathered blue paint, the same tall acacia trees lining the pathway. Even the faint smell of chalk and warm grass felt familiar. "This place hasn't changed," she murmured. Daniel, walking a few steps ahead, glanced back. Some things aren't supposed to. Inside the gymnasium, it was all cheerful chaos. Students were setting up chairs. Banners fluttered with the words, "Blake Innovations X St. Gabriel High, empowering tomorrow's learners." The sound of chatter, laughter, and squeaky shoes filled the air. Emma jumped right in without waiting for instruction. She rolled up her sleeves, tied her hair into a messy bun, and started helping the volunteers hang the banners. "Careful with that ladder," she called to a student. "If you fall, I'll have to fill out paperwork, and I'm allergic to paperwork." The kids laughed. Within minutes, she had everyone moving in rhythm, her voice light, her energy contagious. Daniel watched from across the gym, clipboard in hand. He didn't interfere. He didn't need to. Watching her was enough. She had that rare kind of presence that made people want to do better, work faster, laugh more. The kind of warmth you couldn't manufacture. His colleague Raymond walked up beside him, pushing his glasses up his nose. "She's good with people," he said approvingly. Daniel didn't answer right away. His gaze lingered on Emma, On the way her smile crinkled the corners of her eyes, the way she clapped for the students like every small effort mattered. She's... His voice softened, almost to himself. Something else. Raymond raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He didn't need to. The expression on Daniel's face said everything. By the time the event wrapped up, the sun was dipping low, painting the courtyard in shades of amber and rose. The students waved goodbye, clutching their new equipment, their laughter echoing as they disappeared through the gates. Emma sat on the edge of a planter box, sipping water, exhausted but glowing. Daniel approached, hands in his pockets, watching her with quiet amusement. "You did well today," he said simply. She smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "So did you. For someone who doesn't like talking, you survived 3 hours of small talk. That's a record." His lips curved slightly. It was tolerable. They both smiled. For a moment, it was just the two of them. The hum of cicadas, the faint chatter of teachers in the distance, the slow dance of falling leaves. Emma looked up at the building that had once been filled with teenage dreams and heartbreaks. "Can't believe we both went here," she said, more to herself than to him. "Small world." Daniel nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "Smaller than you think." Something flickered in his expression. Something far away, remembered. But before Emma could ask, he was already turning toward the car, saying, "We should head back before it gets dark." She followed, unaware that somewhere behind his composed silence was a memory. One he'd kept for years. Chapter 4. The Library Memory. Long before Daniel Blake was the composed CEO with a crisp suit and unreadable gaze. He was a quiet 17-year-old with a sharp mind, a calm presence, and a reputation for never losing focus. Back then, the library was his sanctuary, a place of silence, old paper, and borrowed sunlight. He sat in his usual corner one late afternoon, nose buried in a physics book, when a familiar sound broke the stillness. Laughter. Bright, careless like a song. Emma Carter walked in with her friends, all energy and noise, her ponytail swaying as she complained loudly. "I'm totally failing algebra. I swear. Numbers hate me." Her friends giggled, teasing her before they left. Emma plopped into a chair at the next table, muttering dramatically as she opened a textbook. "All right, Emma. Focus. You can do this." Within 5 minutes, her head started to droop. Daniel peeked over his book, fighting a smile. He nodded off mid-sentence, mumbling something about X equals nap time. When her head tilted forward, he panicked for a second, then instinctively reached out and caught it before it could hit the desk. She didn't stir. Carefully, awkwardly, he pulled off his sweater and rolled it into a makeshift pillow, tucking it under her cheek. The sunlight fell across her hair, catching gold in the strands. She looked so peaceful it almost hurt. Daniel sat there, motionless, listening to her slow, even breaths. For the first time that day, maybe that week, he smiled. He saw her everywhere after that. At the canteen, laughing with her best friend, Mia, over a shared ice cream cup. In the hallway, rushing to class with her bag half-zipped. At the library again, sometimes awake, mostly not. He joined the library volunteer team, quietly sorting books just to be near her. He wrote his name beside hers once in the sign-in sheet, and immediately crossed it out, flustered. At the school fair, he overheard her tell Mia, "I want to work for someone who inspires people someday. You know? Like, someone who actually cares." He remembered that line for years. And when graduation came, he stood at the back of the crowd, his cap in his hands, heart heavy with the knowledge that she'd never know him beyond the quiet boy in the corner. She laughed with her friends, hugging Mia tightly. He smiled from afar, proud of her for reasons he couldn't explain. Then she turned and left, and that was it. She disappeared from his world, taking her laughter with her. Now, standing in the present, Daniel could still see that moment as vividly as if it had happened yesterday. Emma looked up from where she was packing up event materials, the light catching her face, soft and open. "Oh, now that I think about it," she said with a shy laugh. "You're 2 years older than me, right? You were the school president." Daniel glanced up, feigning surprise. "I was. Of course you were. Girls liked you. You were handsome." He arched an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth lifting. "You think I'm handsome?" She rolled her eyes. "I mean, for a man who fires people for typos, sure." He laughed. A real laugh this time, unguarded and warm, and for a second, she just stared at him, startled by how different he looked when he smiled like that. Something inside her softened. Maybe it was the golden light, or the faint scent of chalk and memories still clinging to the walls. But in that moment, the space between them didn't feel like boss and employee. It felt like two old souls crossing paths again after years apart, finally recognizing what they'd been missing all along. Chapter 5. New Rhythm. By Monday morning, everything was back to normal, or at least, that's what Emma kept telling herself. The trip was over, the school banners had been folded, and the corporate photos were already posted on the company's intranet with captions like, "Empowering Tomorrow's Learners." But between Daniel and her, something had quietly shifted. He wasn't just the CEO anymore. He was Daniel, the man who once caught her head before it hit a library table, the man who smiled like it was a secret. Not that she was thinking about that, of course. Not at all. Definitely not during meetings or lunch breaks, or when he said her name in that calm, measured way that made her pulse do very unprofessional things. Right? Not at all. Work life resumed with its usual pace, but Emma somehow found herself at the center of Daniel's orbit. Started small. One morning, he walked past her desk and asked, "Can you schedule the client call for Thursday instead of Friday?" She did. Then he asked, "Can you filter my calls for the next hour?" She did that too. And before she knew it, she was choosing his coffee order, rearranging his files, keeping track of his calendar. Basically doing everything except running the company. When Mia teased her about it during lunch, Emma had shrugged. "I'm just helping out." "Helping out," Mia repeated. "Emma, you're basically his unofficial personal assistant/life manager." Emma sipped her iced latte, eyes darting away. "He forgets to eat sometimes. Someone has to keep him alive, right? For work purposes." "Totally professional. Love that for you." Their days fell into an easy rhythm. Morning coffee, shared elevator rides, light banter between meetings. Sometimes, when the office air conditioner was turned up too high, Daniel would wordlessly shrug off his jacket and place it over the back of her chair as he walked by. "Thanks, boss," she'd say. "Just practical," he'd reply without looking at her, though the corner of his mouth always twitched upward. At lunch, she'd tease him. "You know, you're allergic to compliments, huh? Every time someone says you're doing a good job, your face looks like it's buffering." He gave her that quiet look, one eyebrow slightly raised. "Maybe I just prefer honesty." "Oh, I'm honest," she said, grinning. "Brutally so. Don't tempt me." He didn't, but he didn't stop her from making him laugh either. Over time, their work rhythm became like clockwork, efficient, steady, but pulsing with something subtle underneath. Daniel began noticing things he shouldn't. The way Emma hummed when she was deep in concentration. The way she scrunched her nose when annoyed at spreadsheets. The way she always looked out for others, even when she was running on fumes herself. He caught himself glancing toward her desk more often than necessary. And every time he did, he'd silently remind himself, "You're her boss. Keep it professional." But his chest didn't listen. One afternoon, during a long and mind-numbing board meeting, Emma sat beside him, half asleep as another executive droned on about quarterly projections. Her pen moved absently over Daniel's notepad. When the meeting ended, she realized what she'd done. A tiny doodle of a smiley face beside his neatly written notes. "Oh my God!" she muttered, grabbing for the paper. But Daniel had already closed his notebook and stood. She braced for it, the lecture, the raised eyebrow, the cold professionalism. But it never came. Hours later, as the office emptied and Daniel sat alone at his desk, he flipped open his notebook. The little smiley stared back at him, round, simple, cheerful. He should have been irritated. Instead, he found himself smiling. He tore out the page carefully, folded it once, and tucked it into his drawer. When Emma stopped by before leaving, she looked nervous. "Did I mess something up in the meeting?" He looked up at her, amused. "No." Her brows furrowed. "You sure? Because you gave me that look earlier." He leaned back in his chair. "You made the meeting bearable." Emma blinked. Then she laughed, soft and surprised. "Well, that's probably the nicest thing you've ever said to me." "Don't get used to it," he said lightly. "Too late." She turned to leave and he watched her go, the soft sound of her laughter still echoing in his head long after she disappeared down the hallway. For the rest of the night, that tiny doodle sat folded in his drawer. And every time he caught himself thinking of her, Daniel told himself it was just a harmless habit. But even he knew this was how all dangerous habits began. Chapter 6. Whispers in the Hallway. Started small, like most rumors do. A few side glances here, a lowered voice there, a laugh that cut off too quickly when Emma walked by. At first, she told herself she was imagining it. Offices had gossip, that was part of the ecosystem. But soon it became impossible to ignore. "She's too close to the CEO. Did you see her leave his office again? Must be nice. No one gets away with mistakes like that unless they're special." The words were whispered, but they might as well have been shouted. Emma pretended not to care. She smiled, said hello, kept working. But each whisper chipped away at her confidence like slow erosion. By midweek, she'd stopped dropping by Daniel's office with his usual afternoon coffee. She declined his casual "join me for lunch" with polite excuses. Her tone in emails became short, careful, professional. Daniel noticed immediately. He wasn't used to noticing personal shifts in employees, but Emma wasn't just any employee. She was the rhythm of his day, the quiet hum that made the long hours bearable. And now she was distant, polite, efficient, but distant. During meetings, she avoided his eyes. When he stopped by her desk, she'd smile too quickly and look back at her screen. It bothered him more than it should have. By Friday, they found themselves alone in the elevator. Just the two of them and the hum of tension thick in the air. Daniel pressed the button for the top floor, his reflection calm and unreadable in the mirrored doors. Emma clutched her files like a shield. "You're avoiding me," he said quietly. She didn't look up. "I'm respecting boundaries." His brow furrowed. "You're not crossing them." Her voice was softer now. "People think I am." The silence stretched. Daniel exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Let me handle the people," he said finally. "You just keep being you." Emma's chest tightened. "That's not how this works, Daniel. You're the CEO. You can walk through fire and they'll say it's strategy. I do it and it's gossip." He turned toward her fully then, expression unreadable but eyes warm. "They talk because they see what they don't understand." Her throat went dry. "And what's that?" He held her gaze for a heartbeat too long. "You make this place human." The elevator chimed. The doors slid open. Emma stepped out first, her pulse loud in her ears. That evening, she met Mia at their favorite cafe, a small corner place with fairy lights and mismatched mugs. Emma stirred her iced mocha like it had personally offended her. "I think people are starting to hate me." Mia, ever the calm one, tore her croissant in half. "People hated sliced bread when it first came out. Doesn't mean it wasn't great." Emma groaned. "I'm serious. There are rumors." About me and Daniel. Mia's brows rose. Ah, the classic office romance myth. You finally made it, babe. You're the main character. Mia, Emma warned. Her friend laughed softly, then leaned forward. Okay, listen. I get it. You like him. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Emma sighed, slumping back in her chair. It's not even about that. He's my boss. I don't want people thinking I'm, you know, sleeping your way up? Mia finished bluntly. Emma winced. Yeah, that. Mia nodded, thoughtful. Then don't explain yourself. People will always twist the story to fit what makes them feel bigger. You can't control the whispers, only what kind of person you are when you hear them. Emma frowned at her cup. Easy for you to say. Hard for me too, Mia said gently. But Emma, don't dim yourself to make them comfortable. You shine too naturally for that. Emma smiled weakly. You're annoyingly wise sometimes. Occupational hazard, Mia said, sipping her latte. Best friend duties include pep talks and unsolicited reality checks. They laughed, the sound light and familiar, and for the first time that week, Emma felt like she could breathe again. Later that night, she opened her laptop to finish some work. A new email notification blinked at the corner of her screen. From Daniel Blake. Subject. No subject. Her stomach flipped. She clicked it open. Only one line stared back at her. Never dim yourself to make others comfortable. No signature, no context, just that one line. Emma leaned back in her chair, heart thudding. Somewhere between fear and warmth, she smiled, softly, almost to herself. Maybe the world would always whisper, but for the first time she wasn't sure she cared to listen. Chapter 7. The Office Storm. The calm rhythm of the office didn't last. It never does. A week after Daniel's email, the company welcomed its newest executive, Richard Caldwell, head of operations. Tall, sharp suit, sharper smile. The kind of man who shook hands like it was a competition. On paper, he was brilliant. In person, he was a chill in a warm room. He transferred from the New York branch, bringing with him an aura of ambition and a faint scent of arrogance. Everyone knew his type, the man who could charm a boardroom and gut a department in the same hour. And from the moment he arrived, he noticed Emma. Not in the way Daniel did, not with quiet admiration, but with calculation. She's Daniel's favorite, someone had whispered. Caldwell's smirk said, that's useful information. By midweek, the change was obvious. Emma was suddenly being left out of project emails. Meetings she'd been part of for months were now executive only. Caldwell started assigning tasks she'd already completed to other people, under the guise of hierarchical clarity. It was all subtle, professional sabotage. Emma noticed, of course. She always noticed, but she didn't complain. She stayed calm, polite, steady, the way she always did when the world tried to shake her. Still, Daniel saw, and Daniel Blake did not handle injustice well. The breaking point came during a quarterly board meeting, a long, glass-walled room filled with suits, statistics, and sharp voices. Emma stood quietly at the back, taking notes. Caldwell sat near the head of the table, all confidence and cold charm. He was presenting a proposal about budget cuts, one that would conveniently remove Emma's involvement from several cross-department projects. I just think we need structure, Caldwell was saying smoothly. Delegation, boundaries. Reception staff shouldn't be directly influencing creative strategy. It sets a complicated precedent. There was a murmur of agreement. Daniel's pen stopped mid-tap. His voice, when it came, was calm, but cold enough to silence the room. She's a receptionist, Daniel repeated slowly, eyes on Caldwell. And yet, she's contributed more practical insight than half this table. The air crackled. Someone coughed. Someone else looked at the ceiling, pretending not to exist. Caldwell's polite smile faltered. I wasn't questioning her effort, only. You were, Daniel interrupted smoothly. And next time you can question me directly. The silence that followed was absolute. Emma's heart hammered so hard she thought the whole room could hear it. She wanted to disappear, to shrink into the polished floor. But another part of her, the stubborn part, wanted to stand taller than ever. The meeting resumed awkwardly. Eyes darted. Whispers buzzed. Daniel sat back, face unreadable, but his jaw was tight. He knew he'd gone too far publicly, but for once he didn't care. By the time everyone left, Emma was still at her desk, pretending to type something important. The office had emptied, the city outside glowing in twilight. She heard footsteps approach, slow, deliberate. Daniel stopped beside her desk, knocking lightly on the edge. I may have caused you more trouble, he said quietly. She looked up, meeting his eyes. You just told the entire company I'm not a goldfish, she said with a faint smile. I'll survive. A corner of his mouth lifted. A goldfish. Short memory. Easy to replace. You get it. He chuckled. That quiet, low sound that always made her chest feel a little too tight. I meant what I said, he murmured. You've earned your place here. Emma tilted her head, smirking. Even if I doodle on your meeting notes? Especially then. For a moment, neither moved. The office was silent except for the faint hum of the city. Emma looked away first, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. You should go home, boss. You've been fighting dragons all day. He smiled faintly. And you? I'll stick around a bit. Slay a few spreadsheets. Daniel nodded but didn't walk away right away. He just stood there, watching her fingers move across the keyboard, the soft glow of the monitor lighting her face. Something about the moment felt fragile, suspended between professionalism and something far more dangerous. He finally said, softly, Good night, Emma. She looked up, smiled. Good night, Daniel. And that was the moment he knew. Not a passing crush, not admiration, but the deep, aching certainty that he was already in too deep and falling further by the day. Chapter 8. The Unsent Messages. Emma sat on her couch that night, legs tucked under a blanket, laptop open but untouched. The TV played softly in the background, some random drama she wasn't watching. Her phone rested on her lap, glowing faintly, one empty message box staring back at her. The cursor blinked. Blink, blink, blink. She typed slowly. Do you ever think about me outside of work? Her thumb hovered over send. Her heart raced. For a moment, she imagined the notification lighting up on Daniel's screen. His face unreadable. His reply, what would it even be? Then, with a quiet exhale, she deleted it all. The message vanished. But the ache stayed. She set her phone aside, pressed a pillow to her chest, and muttered to the empty room, Pathetic, Emma, you are officially a walking HR violation. Outside, the city glowed, indifferent and endless. Across town, Daniel sat in his condo, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, a glass of untouched whiskey beside his laptop. The room was quiet except for the low hum of the city outside his window. He'd opened a blank email hours ago. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, typing words he knew he shouldn't. You make the office feel like something worth coming back to. He stared at the sentence, reading it over and over. Too personal, too transparent, too true. He shut the laptop gently, the screen going dark. But long after, he sat there in the dim light, the sentence still burning in his mind. The next morning, the elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Emma stepped in first, clutching her coffee. Daniel followed a moment later, composed as ever. They stood side by side, the silence thick, charged. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. The air between them hummed with everything they'd almost said, every word they'd typed and erased. When the elevator reached their floor, Emma stepped out first, heart unsteady. Daniel followed, his eyes lingering just a second too long. The world went on, oblivious, but they both knew something had shifted again. By lunchtime, the tension had softened into something easier, the kind that hides beneath laughter. Emma plopped her tray down across from Daniel in the cafeteria, cheerful and chaotic as ever. Her meal looked like a festival. Fries, salad, 2 slices of cake, and 2 drinks because, as she liked to say, hydration is life. Daniel's tray, in contrast, was minimalist perfection. Grilled salmon, greens, sparkling water. Emma stared at it in mock horror. That's your lunch? You eat like a very elegant rabbit. He glanced up, amused. It's called clean eating, she gasped. It's called sad eating. Where's the crunch? The ketchup? The happiness? Without asking, she plucked a fry from her plate and dropped it onto his. There. 1 French fry. Now it's a balanced meal. Daniel raised an eyebrow, lips twitching. Do you do this to everyone you eat with? Only people who clearly have too much money and not enough flavor in their lives. He laughed then. Not his usual polite chuckle, but a real laugh. Quiet, genuine, unguarded. Emma froze, watching him. He didn't laugh like that often. It was the kind of sound she wanted to hear again. You're not intimidated by me, are you? He asked, eyes glinting with quiet amusement. Oh, totally terrified, she said, grabbing another fry dramatically. I stress eat when I fear for my life. Daniel's lips curved. I don't think anyone's ever accused my quinoa of being dangerous. It is to joy, Mr. Blake, she said solemnly. It is to joy. He shook his head, smiling. A small, helpless smile that didn't belong to the CEO she knew. For a while, they just ate, comfortable silence settling between them. Then Daniel's voice came, softer. You seem lighter these days, he said. Happier. Emma looked up, surprised. You noticed. He shrugged, but there was a faint smile on his face. I notice things. She toyed with her straw. I stopped checking my ex's socials. That's like emotional detox. He tilted his head. Do you still think about him? Sometimes, she admitted. Mostly about how much energy I wasted trying to fix someone who didn't even bring his own glue. Daniel chuckled, a quiet sound of admiration. He sounds like an idiot. He is, she said, shrugging. But I've moved on. No use crying over spilled red flags. Good, he said softly. You deserve someone better. Someone who knows your worth, without needing to be told. The air between them stilled. For a second, the words felt heavier than they should. Emma blinked, then smiled to break the tension. Like someone who lets me order 2 desserts without judgment? Daniel's mouth curved. Exactly like that. She grinned. Then it's official. I'll make sure you eat real food from now on. Is that an order? Absolutely, Mr. Blake, she said with a wink. Consider it part of the company's wellness program. He smiled, quiet, genuine, and just a little undone. She sipped her milk tea, carefree and bright, while he watched her like a man who just realized he was falling, and had no intention of stopping. Because every word from her, every laugh, every shared moment, felt less like conversation and more like gravity. And gravity always wins. Chapter 9. Falling quietly. The days began to fold into each other, quietly, almost beautifully. Whatever existed between Daniel and Emma wasn't loud or obvious. It lived in the small moments, the kind people in the office didn't always notice or pretended not to. Every morning, Daniel somehow appeared near her desk just as she arrived. He'd ask something trivial like, "Did the client confirm?" Or, "Is the report ready?" But they both knew he could have sent an email. Emma, in turn, left a cup of coffee on his table every morning without asking how he liked it. She just knew. When she cracked a joke in meetings, he laughed. Not the polite kind, but the quiet, genuine one that made her feel like she'd done something extraordinary. And when Daniel was too quiet, when the lines under his eyes deepened, she always seemed to sense it before anyone else. She'd appear at his door with a light knock and say something ridiculous, just to make him smile. The office, of course, noticed. It always did. The whispers came again, soft, curious, sometimes cruel. But this time, Emma didn't care as much. She'd learned that the people who talked the most were usually the loneliest. One afternoon, Daniel stopped by her desk, his expression unreadable. "I'll be in Singapore for a week," he said. "Meetings with the regional board." Emma blinked. "A whole week? Who's going to glare at me when I'm late?" He gave her a look. "You're not planning to be late, are you?" "I mean," she shrugged innocently. "Statistically speaking." He hid a smile, shaking his head. "Try not to cause chaos while I'm gone." "No promises." They shared that look again, the one that always lasted a heartbeat too long. The one that said everything and nothing all at once. Then he was gone. The office felt different without him. Quieter, colder. Emma still brought 2 coffees every morning out of habit. One for herself, and one she'd leave by his desk untouched. She'd catch herself checking her phone too often, scrolling through their old messages. Most of them were about work, meetings, schedules, updates. But every few lines there'd be something else. A joke, a teasing remark, a warmth that didn't belong in office correspondence. And each time she'd smile, then sigh. Friday night found her wrapped in a blanket burrito on her couch, watching a rom-com she wasn't really following. The heroine was crying about true love, and Emma muttered at the screen, "He's not worth it, girl. Just get snacks." Still, her fingers hovered over her phone, scrolling to one name, Daniel Blake. Her thumb hesitated over the message field. "Hope your meetings went well. Delete. Don't forget to eat. Delete." She bit her lip, smiling faintly, then typed before she could think too hard. "I miss you." Before she could delete it, thud. Her plant, Luna, toppled off the shelf. Soil scattered across the floor. "Luna." "Oh." Her phone buzzed in her hand. She froze. Message sent, white heavy check mark. Her blood ran cold. "No. No, 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 no," she whispered, staring at her screen in horror. "Why are my thumbs traitors?" And then 3 dots appeared. Daniel was typing. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely breathe. Then it came. "Daniel, I miss you too." She stared at it, unblinking. He didn't even hesitate. A full minute passed, maybe longer, before another message appeared. "Daniel, did I just reply to something that wasn't meant for me again?" Emma typed quickly, panicking. "Emma, define meant." "Daniel, you tell me, Miss Carter." She covered her face with her hands. "I hate myself," she muttered. Another ping. "Daniel, don't. You have terrible timing. But great honesty. Good night, Emma." She didn't reply. She couldn't. She just stared at the screen until it dimmed, cheeks flushed, pulse racing, the words replaying in her head. "I miss you too." Across the ocean, Daniel sat on the edge of his hotel bed, phone still in hand. He read her message again, and again. He exhaled slowly, the smallest smile tugging at his lips. "Finally," he murmured. He set the phone down beside him but didn't sleep for a long time. When he returned a week later, the sky was heavy with rain. Thunder rolled outside, and half the building had lost power. Only the emergency lights flickered softly across the office, painting everything in a muted glow. Most people had already gone home. Only Daniel and Emma remained, reviewing files in the conference room. A small flashlight sat between them, casting shadows that danced on the glass walls. "I can't believe I told my boss I missed him," Emma said, breaking the quiet. Daniel looked up from his papers, amusement glinting in his eyes. "I can't believe you did too, but I'm not complaining." She laughed softly, her face half hidden in the dim light. "You're impossible." "Guilty," he said. They sat in silence again, but it wasn't awkward this time. It was warm, charged, alive. Emma traced circles on the table absent-mindedly. "You ever wish you could go back?" Daniel's voice was low, thoughtful. "Only if I could change one thing." She glanced up. "What's that?" He met her eyes. "I talked to you in that library." Something in her chest tightened. The rain blurred against the windows, soft and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. "You've been quiet for a week," she whispered. "I was trying not to cross a line," he said. Then softly, "But you erased it." Their eyes locked, two confessions meeting in silence. Outside, thunder rumbled. Inside, the air hummed with everything they weren't saying. And for the first time, neither of them looked away. Chapter 10. The Talk. The office was almost empty by the time Emma found the courage to knock on his door. Outside, the city lights shimmered through the glass walls, cold and distant. Inside, Daniel sat at his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, typing something that looked far too serious for 8 p.m. When he looked up, the moment froze between them. "Got a minute?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Always." Emma stepped in, holding a folder like it was a shield. I got an offer today." Daniel leaned back slightly. "An offer?" She nodded, avoiding his gaze. "From the COO. They're expanding the branch in Melbourne. They need someone to manage operations support, scheduling, coordination, admin strategy." She exhaled. "Basically everything I do now, but with better pay, better title, and less gossip." That last line hung in the air like smoke. Daniel's expression didn't change much, but the silence said everything. After a long pause, he asked, "When would you start?" "Next month, if I accept." He nodded once, slowly. "It's a good opportunity." "I know." Another pause, a deeper one. The hum of the city filled the room. The sound of air conditioning. The tick of the clock. Finally, he said quietly, "If you stay, people will keep talking." She looked up. He was still calm, but his voice was softer, rougher around the edges. "And if you leave," he continued, "I'll have to pretend it doesn't hurt." The words hit her harder than she expected. Her throat tightened. "Daniel," she began, but her voice trembled. "What are we doing?" He looked at her for a long time, the kind of look that saw everything. The exhaustion, the confusion, the pull neither of them could keep denying. "Something," he said quietly, "that I should have done years ago." He stood, crossing the space between them slowly. Each step careful, measured, like he was afraid she might disappear if he moved too fast. He stopped a breath away from her, close enough to feel the air shift, but not close enough to touch. "I like you, Emma," he said, voice low and certain. "Not as my employee. Not as the girl from the library I couldn't talk to. Not as some accidental text message that turned my life upside down." Her eyes shimmered. He took a breath. "I like you as the woman who made me laugh again. The woman who walks into a room and makes it feel lighter. The one who leaves coffee on my desk without asking, and somehow makes this entire place less lonely." Emma laughed, softly, shakily, the kind of laugh that hides tears. "You're impossible." His mouth curved. "So are you." For a moment, the whole world seemed to still. She stepped a little closer, not much, just enough to close the ache between them. "Daniel," she whispered, "what happens now?" He looked down at her. eyes unreadable but full of something fierce and fragile all at once. "Now," he said softly, "we stop pretending." And there, in the quiet hum of the office, under the pale city lights, two people who had spent months circling the edge of something real finally stood still. Not touching, not yet, but closer than ever before. The kind of closeness that said, "This is it." The beginning of everything they didn't know they'd been waiting for. Epilogue: The Algorithm of Fate. Months passed. The seasons shifted. Winter's gray softened into the first hint of spring. Emma Carter had settled into her new branch office. The Melbourne skyline stretching beyond her window, sunlight pooling across her desk. The air felt different here, lighter, freer, hers. Her confidence bloomed in quiet ways. She moved through meetings with ease now, organized, sharp, still laughing too loudly at her own jokes. Her colleagues adored her. No one whispered anymore. On her desk sat two familiar things: a half-empty cup of milk tea and a small potted plant named Luna 2, because the first one, tragically, didn't survive her watering experiments. Her laptop chimed. A video call request blinked on screen. Daniel Blake. Emma smiled before she even clicked accept. His face appeared, that familiar calm expression, softened by a warmth that didn't used to be there. Behind him, the old office looked the same, except for the coffee cup on his desk, the one she used to bring. "Good morning," she said, cheerful. "Afternoon here," he replied, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "How's Melbourne treating you?" "Good," she said, leaning back. "No one's called me Miss Carter in weeks. I think I'm healing." He chuckled. "Tragic. Deeply." They went through their updates, budgets, project timelines, new partnerships. The conversation was professional, mostly, but between the lines were small things. A shared glance, a teasing tone, a softness that belonged only to them. When the meeting wrapped up, neither of them moved to end the call. Emma tilted her head. "So, did you eat lunch?" He smirked. "Trying to make sure I don't fall back into sad eating?" "Exactly," she said, sipping her drink. "Can't have the CEO forgetting about flavor." Daniel shook his head, smiling. "You haven't changed." "Neither have you." Silence stretched, not awkward, but warm, full of everything they didn't need to say. Finally, she said softly, "You know, I still can't believe that text started all this." Daniel leaned forward slightly, voice low but steady. "Maybe it wasn't a mistake." Emma smiled, the kind of smile that reached her eyes. "Maybe not. Sometimes, the wrong message finds the right person. Maybe that text wasn't a mistake after all. Maybe it was the algorithm of fate. Two lives continuing, connected not by proximity, but by something quieter. The story doesn't end. It simply keeps going in messages, glances, and the small, beautiful chaos of timing that finally got it right.
If you like this video, please like and subscribe.